All right, let's talk about this. So Kim Iversen is joining us now, formerly of Rising, not The Rising, formerly of Rising. Recently, and we're big fans of her work, recently went independent, left Rising over some specific issues that arose. And Kim joins us now to talk about that in independent media and what she's doing now. Kim, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not with Rising anymore. It is the Rising, not The Rising. I know we had some question about that, but yeah, 2.5 weeks ago now, I think it's been, and we had a breakup. But what happened was as maybe some of you know, if you watch the show at all, but we had these segments called radars, and those are our kind of monologue piece. We do them every day. And my radars were often centered around the pandemic, COVID-19, Fauci, mandates, and whatnot. And so I'd spent quite a bit of time talking about, really reporting on those issues and being very critical, highly critical of the pandemic. And that was, I brought in literally millions of viewers to Rising on those topics. And then I'd found out that Fauci was going to be interviewed by the show. I was one of 3 hosts, or there's a rotating cast of hosts, but I was one of the main hosts that was there every single day. And I got excited thinking, oh, right, here's time. I get to finally confront Fauci with all of his bad decisions throughout the pandemic. And the producers called me the night before the interview was supposed to happen, and they said, when we booked Fauci, his team asked specifically who the hosts would be that would be interviewing him. And we told them Batya and Robbie. And Robbie Suave is a regular host on the show. He's one of the main hosts. And then Batya Ungar Sargon she's a fill-in host every Monday or every other Monday or something. And so they submitted those 2 names. And then I said, well, that's not acceptable. You're going to have to go back to the Fauci team and tell them that I am going to be in that interview. There's no reason to not have me in there. And the audience will revolt if they see that I'm not in that interview. I brought the audience to Rising on this particular topic. And if I'm not in that interview, then they're not going to be okay with it. And I'm not going to be okay with it. And so they said, okay, we'll see tomorrow. Right. And the next day, that morning, I'm getting ready to do my radar piece and about to pipe in. I'm in Los Angeles and they're in Washington, D.C. So I always pipe in through Skype. And they called me before I was scheduled to go on. And they said, hey, we got to have this difficult conversation. But we decided ultimately not to go back to Fauci's team and to tell them that you would be in on the interview. Implying that, the reason why they were afraid, they didn't directly say this, but the reason why they didn't want to approach Fauci's team and say that I'm on it is because apparently Fauci's team had asked them over and over and over again who the hosts were. So they submitted the names of the hosts. The Fauci team, knowing I was the big personality on the show, kept going back and saying, now who are you, and that's it, just those 2? Nobody else is going to be popping up, right?
Right.
And so they knew if they went back, what they've implied is that if they went back, that the Fauci team would cancel the interview. And they ultimately felt like they really needed that interview. And I told them, if you do that, you'll lose the trust of the audience. I have been telling the audience for an entire year since I've been here that, yes, I'm now with corporate media, but they don't censor me. They don't hold me back. They're not limiting me in any way. And that was true. But now it wouldn't be true. And I wouldn't be able to say that with a straight face and look my audience in the eye and say, don't worry, guys, all is well. Yes, it's corporate media, but they're not holding me back, when that's exactly what's happened right here with this Fauci interview. So I told them I wouldn't be able to stay and continue to lie to my audience and bring them here and lie to them. I'm not going to do that. And you can't lose the trust of the audience. If you lose the trust of the audience, you're no different than CNN. And then you become CNN Plus and you just go by the wayside really fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, CNN Plus. It's too soon. I mean, they haven't even printed the tombstone for CNN Plus yet. I know, it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they felt like they really needed that Fauci interview, because every Fauci interview that anyone gets, even CNN, is the same stuff, right? So no one's getting groundbreaking things out of Fauci. But then again, there's no one asking him uncomfortable questions when he goes on CNN or MSNBC.
Right.
He's happy to talk to those people who ask him exactly that, like, do you still like vaccine mandates, Dr. Fauci? What do you think of the case numbers? Right? Nothing.
What about masks?
Right? Yeah, mask mandates, that kind of thing. So no one's challenging him, but no one's getting any. So it's interesting. They felt like they needed to have someone who wouldn't challenge him, and they needed him. And I feel like the world needs more of none of that.
Yeah, it wasn't, they kind of touted it as this big exclusive interview, and that's how they put it out there when they published it. And yeah, there's no exclusive with Fauci. I mean, he's all over the place. We see him being interviewed all the time, and he says the same things. You know what you're going to get out of that guy. So I felt, and the case I made to the producers was, it's better for you to go to the Fauci team, have them back out because I'm in it. And then we go to the audience and we say, look, here's a government worker paid by our tax dollars, unwilling to face the American people. That should be a problem for every American, that these government workers won't come face us and answer our questions. And that is what we go back to the audience with. We don't go and just do the interview without me. And, of course, what happened was they published the interview. I said nothing to the audience. I was radio silent on what had happened. Everyone in the audience just saw I wasn't in that interview. And now, normally on Rising, because I wasn't on every episode, I wasn't on every segment anyway. I joined in halfway through the show, and I was only on 3 out of 8 of the segments daily. Normally, when they don't see me, they say, "Where's Kim? Where's Kim?" You see that in the comments all the time. But this time on this interview, they did exactly what I knew they would do without me even saying anything like I've been left out of this interview or anything. They all said, wow. They knew I was left out of that interview. They knew I wouldn't have missed that interview. They were not just saying, "Where's Kim?" They were saying, "How dare you?" to the Hill. That's what they were saying. "How dare you do this to us?" And they were livid. And then they didn't ever see me again, unfortunately, on Rising because of it.
So, yeah, I mean, their loss and our gain, because now we get more Kim and independent media Kim. So, you've had the roots in this. So what was that moment like when you decided to say, give them the middle finger and say, okay, bye guys, I've got to, and the good thing is you get to walk out that door with your integrity. I see so many people here in our chat saying, good for you. That's how they became a fan of you when you did that. Right. So you got to walk out that door with your integrity. What was that moment like for you?
I mean, it's like it's sad. I'm still sad. I'm sad about it. It was a good relationship. It was like I feel cheated on. Like I was blindsided. I had this wonderful relationship. Like I was married and it was all going great. And I thought everything was rosy. And then they were making promises to me. Like we were about to launch my own show on the Hill. So I was leaving Rising and going and doing my own show with the company. And we had finished the negotiation on that. Everything was done except for signing the paper, which is actually going to happen like the next day. And so I just feel like suddenly I got a packet in the mail and saw my husband cheating on me. It just was devastating. It was sad. It wasn't, but I had no choice but to say, okay, this is unfortunately over now. I mean, I can't stay like this. I've made promises to myself, to the audience. I vouched for you, and that was the thing is I vouched for them for a year. I vouched for him because previously, Crystal and Sagar had left. And when they left, they did some media tours and they were talking about being limited or censored or something. And so then when I joined the Hill, I said, hey, I'll come here, but I can't be limited or censored. And the minute that happens, I can't be here. And they didn't limit me or censor me. They didn't even know what my radar topics were until the morning I did them. And I would just be like, here's what I'm talking about, guys. Yeah. So they never asked, like, what are you talking about? They just let me do my radars completely on my own with no controls on those whatsoever. And so I vouched for them for a year. And then that happened. And it was like the one time, this was the biggest interview on the topic of COVID. That was the topic that I brought all these viewers to see Rising over. And they're going to exclude me from the biggest interview on that particular topic. A career-making potentially interview if I would have been able to actually grill the guy.
Yeah.
But, it just felt sad more than anything. I'm still sad. Everybody that worked there was really great. I really loved everybody I worked with. I really enjoyed it. I was happy. And, but they put me in a position where I felt like there was no other choice, unfortunately. I didn't really feel like I had the choice. I felt they gave me no choice.
Yeah, I can't see another choice. I can't see another option.
There was no other choice. Right.
Yes, but I too worked for mainstream media and had a heartbreaking breakup in the same way. And I know how that hits because you give it your all, you believe in it, right? You see it happening to other people around you and you think, no, I've got a good relationship. It's okay, right? And then when it comes your way, you're like, oh, but I was so loyal. How did that happen? And it takes a long time to mourn it. And I remember when I walked out of that position and I was crying, and I remember thinking like, okay, I'm on my own now. So there's going to be high highs and there's going to be low lows. There's going to be the phone rings and then there's going to be no phone ringing, right? And you just have to believe in yourself enough to bank on yourself that like you've made the right decision and you're going the right path. And that takes bravery. So from one, sort of like ex-media wife to another, I applaud you. I know what that's like. It's really tough.
Well, now in her defense, now you didn't have the media then coming after you in the way that they've come after her right away. So like here's the Daily Beast, right? Upon your leaving. And I loved your take on this on your Instagram. You said, so here was the Daily Beast conspiracy theorist host sparks revolt at DC insider rag. And so you leave, they're saying, well, the conspiracy theorist leaves, right? And I want to say we welcome, to me, if you're a conspiracy theorist, we love to have you here on the show because that's a badge of honor because conspiracy theories are simply 6-month spoiler alerts, Right. So were you surprised by some of the mainstream media jumping on you about this or just coming after you in the past?
No, I mean, whatever. It's like, for one, the Daily Beast to me is like a tabloid, for politics, for political talk. I mean,
Right.
It's not a serious news organization by any means. I mean, maybe it was at one point, but I just don't think it is anymore. So I wasn't really that surprised by it. But, I might be naive. I might be naive to what level of damage that actually does to my reputation. So to me, I think, oh, whatever. I'm like you. It's a badge of honor, right? You call me conspiracy theorist. You've called a lot of really great journalists conspiracy theorists. So what do I care? Right. But maybe it is actually more harmful than I think it is, to the average person that reads Daily Beast but do average people read Daily Beast? I don't know. I think they're just hyper political.
That's a really good answer. I mean, I it is true. I mean, when you get these kind of attacks leveled at you by this corporate media, Chelsea Clinton run corporate media. I think Chelsea Clinton sits on the board of the Daily Beast. I don't know anyone that reads it. I'm sure it pops up in people's news feeds. Let me ask our audience, how many of you read the Daily Beast? I don't know if you do.
But there's nothing outstanding in your media because I did read the article. I'm sorry to give it a
And this
click.
is from April, we should point out. Yeah,
There was one from April, and then there was one right when I left that they then published right after. Yeah.
Saying you are very critical about the pandemic and vaccine mandates, but there's no outrageous sort of Alex Jones type piece like she is saying this that they can level against you. It's sort of the overall tone, right? So you are a bit more slippery than say Alex Jones or who's a podcaster that we all hate, Joe Rogan, right?
Hate?
We don't hate him, but the mainstream media hates him.
The media,
yeah. I don't hate Joe Rogan. They're easier, and it seems like my take on this was like they would love to get a hook in you like that because it would be another notch in the see anti-COVID people are nuts,
right?
But they're not quite able.
Well, because when they labeled me a conspiracy theorist from the beginning, it was because I said the vaccines don't stop the spread.
Yeah.
And so that's what they were claiming was my big conspiracy. Well,
right.
I mean,
hello.
It's hard to, right. Like at this point, if you still believe they stop the spread, then you're the conspiracy theorist, actually.
Yeah.
So that is really when they began labeling me was over that one thing, because that was the contention that Ryan Grimm and I had on Rising. The battle we had over and over and over again was I just kept asserting it doesn't stop the spread. So, and he kept battling me on that point, like, well, it drastically, he would go from, yes, it does, to it drastically reduces it, to, well, if you get a booster, then it kind of morphed, right? The argument on that other side morphed from yes, it does to, well, it mostly does to it kind of does to, well, at least you won't die if you get the vaccine. Like that, COVID won't
Right.
kill you. And so that battle played out over months where I just kept asserting it doesn't stop the spread. And that made me the conspiracy theorist when I was the one actually listening to the science. Legitimately, I was actually watching the FDA meetings that were like 8 hours long. I'd watch the entire meeting and I would see the scientists and the doctors get up there and say, especially the data coming out of Israel, the Israelis were showing up to these meetings and they were saying it doesn't stop the spread. We're trying it out in our own country. It's not working. We're going to have to give another dose of this and hope that does it. So, but I got labeled. And then they label me for other opinions of mine that they don't agree with when it comes to maybe Russia, Ukraine, or China and the Uyghurs or something like that. And so then they just say conspiracy theorists, even though
free speech,
yeah,
right,
which right, is, anything.
Yeah. Free speech is something we talk about a lot here, and we all have to sort of dance this YouTube dance. And, your channel has been penalized. You've had some strikes for certain things. I can't remember now exactly what they were, but, how is it that I guess we can sort of commiserate on how hard it is to be able to say things? Like I said, sometimes I see you say something and I'm like, okay, she said that. We can say something sort of like that because this video's here. I saw it, right? And so we have to sort of help each other out on how to say things while being on this platform that is decreasingly about free speech.
And I just want to say, like, we all sort of dance around it sometimes. And then, like, CNN finally does a video, right, where you have, like, oh, my God, well, there you go. Sanjay Gupta just said it. Right. Does that mean now we can all say it? And you see this distrust in the mainstream media. We played the numbers here about 2 weeks ago on the show about the declining, faith that Americans and the world have in their media. That's probably why. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, if something is said on CNN, it still does not give you license to say it on YouTube. They have their own very strict rules. They still have in place. There's certain things you cannot say on YouTube, but there certainly are many things you can say. So like I would recommend, by the way, at the bottom of this, in the description of this video in particular, go in and put a CDC disclaimer in it real quick saying the CDC says, according to the CDC, the vaccine is safe and effective and everybody should get on their vaccine, the recommended vaccine schedule, including their boosters and whatnot. Like, just stick the disclaimer in the description. But I mean, look, there are many things you can say. You don't have to dance around them. And then there are things for sure that and the things that you can't say are still it's weird. They have these weird rules and they don't make any sense. It's like, so I'm allowed to say this, that sounds more outrageous, but I can't say this because it's in the guidelines. Yeah. So it's like you have to avoid the mask discussion. You have to avoid any election discussion. You have to avoid, like, there's certain discussions. But we learned the hard way, even at the Hill, because we got removed or at least banned from uploading for a week. And I've had it happen on my own channel. So you kind of learn the hard way.
That's happened to us. David, our producer, wants to know, can you tell us one question you had planned to ask Dr. Fauci that you were not able to?
You read my mind, because I was going to say, yes. So David, thank you for that great question, because I was going to say, you had all these questions ready to go for Dr. Fauci. What would you have, now, bearing in mind that we're on YouTube.
No, I understand.
What would you have asked the guy?
I would have asked him, I think, what I feel is still very consequential in people's lives right now, and it's about the mandates. So what is a vaccine to him, and why are we still then mandating this vaccine that we know is not stopping the spread? And so we've got, you can't enter the United States right now if you're an unvaccinated non-citizen. So if you're European, you cannot travel into the United States unvaccinated, even though Americans can go to Europe. So why is there that discrepancy? Or why are we still encouraging universities, for example, to mandate the vaccine for young adults that are 19, 20, 21 years old? Why are preschoolers being mandated to take this when we know that they're at very low risk of severe disease and the vaccine does not stop the spread? So knowing that, why is there not now the new message being, take the vaccine if you're in a very vulnerable category and, you like, make it a personal decision. Why are we not going down that path? So that's, to me, I think the biggest thing I would have wanted to ask him is really pressing him on the current existing mandates that are still there, and even the possibility of future mandates. So that would have been my big, I mean, I would have had limited time with him because there was 3 of us, but.
You know what would have been great? What would be even better is that you get him on your show now. Let's all push for that. Let's all push for that.
Right.
So you don't have to be
Get
into
him
the
to face
guys, the corporate media. Let's have that happen. Yes, Dr. Fauci.
I would love to have a discussion with him and to really lay out all this stuff. Like, what is his reasoning now? And he just right now, his answer is like, well, that wasn't my recommendation. That's the CDC, or that wasn't, all I do is I just give science. And then these universities mandate when they want to mandate. That's not me. It's like, well, you could give the recommendation for them not to mandate.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that could be a recommendation coming from Fauci.
Right.
Well, and he also said he is science. So it's a little hard for him to separate himself from science when he admitted that he is science. So good question. Good question. I wish we would have gotten to see you ask those questions, but hopefully on your own show, we'll be able to do that.